Well, hello, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Hello, how are you?
2023 has been quite a year.
It has indeed. A fantastic year, I think, for many.
How about SSE? Um,
I mean, the world is drastically changed, I think. I mean, it changed over the last 5 years, but I think during 2023, SSE is definitely pushed forward. It's on the top of people's minds. We hear it being talked about all the time. It's certainly something that are on a lot of people's agendas. And I think throughout the next year, it'd be wonderful to see where we go with it.
but we still have some problems that we need to deal with. I mean, if we kind of look at what is the landscape of cybersecurity, what are the challenges? Well, how much have we progressed this year?
I think we're talking about it a lot. I don't necessarily think there's an awful lot of action. It's on people's minds. I think it's part of strategy. Zero trust is something that people are talking about a lot. And I think SSE and Sassy are kind of grounded in that zero trust concept. But when we do reports and when we look at statistics, actually not that many people are on the journey, or if they're on the journey, they're at the very start of the journey.
So let's back up a little bit, Ebenezer. Why don't you really introduce yourself? What is your role, and what do you do in real life?
Okay, so in real life, when I'm not Ebenezer Scrooge, many of my friends would call me Ebenezer Scrooge still. Yes, I'm a field CTO for Hewlett Packard Enterprises. So I started my career off on the customer side, playing games for a living. Kind of spent 25 years riding that wave of infrastructure and virtualization and networking and all of those other things that we're all familiar with. And then about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, jumped into a vendor on the dark side for a little known company called Axis. And then we were acquired earlier this year by Hewlett Packard Enterprises. It was a bit of a daunting decision to make. It was a decision that I definitely spent a lot of time thinking about and rationalizing. But I truly like helping people. And I think the way we've historically done things with networking and security is very complex and troublesome. And I don't think is as efficient as it should be. And that's really why I jumped ship and went for a vendor, because I believed I could help more people than I could in a single corporate environment.
And I happen to be the doppelganger on the light side of the force, if you want to call it that, the Christmas force. Same role as Mr. Jaye Tillson, and similar journey into this space. So that said, let's move on to what is SSE. So obviously we're going to be talking about SSE, some of the functions of SSE, as well as the future of it, as well as some of the challenges that it solves. So Mr. Ebenezer, why don't you break down SSE?
Yeah, so SSE is a Gartner architecture, came along in 2021. It's part of the wider SASE architecture, which includes networking, SD-WAN, etc. Underneath the SSE architecture is Zero Trust Network Access, ZTNA, which is, as I like to see it, is the future of how we do remote access. You've also got what we call SWG, or Secure Web Gateway, really all about protecting your users from the internet. You've got Cloud Access Security Broker, or CASB. It's similar to Secure Web Gateway, but really is about protecting and controlling and keeping an eye on what users are doing in regards to SaaS and cloud services. And then you've got DEM, all these acronyms, I'm sorry, Digital Experience Monitoring, that really is a wrapper around those core functions and gives availability back into that platform. Obviously, as our users moved out of the castle and moat, I like to call it, that protected environment where we had them kind of inside our firewalls, when they moved out, we lost a lot of that visibility. We had those tools available on-prem, but we didn't really have them when they were remote. And that's really what DEM does. It gives you that visibility into what users are doing whilst they're outside of that kind of legacy protected network.
So if I'm a CISO, maybe a CIO or director of infrastructure, maybe all the way down to an engineer, whether that be a network engineer or a security engineer, why would I consider this framework called SSE versus what I've been doing in the past? Building out firewalls, protecting my data behind the the large walls of corporate security. Why would I want to consider this change?
Over the last, I don't know, several decades, CISOs and CIOs have always really wanted to consolidate products. They've got a lot of complex security tools at hand, and things like Secure Web Gateway aren't necessarily new, nor is CASB. They've been around really since the internet and since the cloud. ZTNA is the relatively new one, but for me, SSE is the one we can consolidate. We can finally get to the point where we can bring a number of these bespoke independent tools together into a single platform. And SASE takes it even one step further. But SSE really is about protecting your users from all of those attack points that we have in the world we live in today. So it gives them zero trust-based access into services, whether they're on-prem or in the cloud. It protects them from the internet, and it protects them wherever they are. So for me, when I lived in that world, I was always concerned about where was the attack going to come from? Where was my business going to be compromised? And a lot of that was remote access tools. They certainly put people on the internet, or sorry, they put your site on the internet, so that they've got IP addresses on the internet that people can try and attack. The users, when they're connected on a legacy VPN, can traverse all over the network. It basically puts a user on the network as if they were on the LAN. And the world we live in today with ransomware and insider threat, we really want to reduce that attack surface. We want to limit it to really the only things that the users should be accessing are the things they need to access. And I mean, I've said this regularly, and it's not something that I think should surprise anybody when I say that user A should only access what user A should have access to. But that's actually not the way we've always done things. We've always just allowed them to go wherever because it was easier to configure and easier to deal with. And that's really different in the world we live in today. If somebody's sitting in a coffee shop and they connect or they get compromised, then that person on a legacy VPN is going to be able to go all over that network. They're going to be able to go through that connection and use that network and use it for bad. And that concerns me.
So why don't we get into a little bit of the current state of cybersecurity? Ransomware tends to be one of the biggest challenges out there. We saw it dip a little bit in 2022, but 2023 came back with a flurry, almost a tidal wave. The numbers are rather stunning, and we probably should talk about the reason why. Why would you want to consider SSE, SASE, Zero Trust? And to do that, let's get our first haunting going. Bring on the ghost of ransomware. Welcome, the ghost of ransomware past.
You were foretold of our coming. You are to expect 3 spirits. Thank you for having me on.
It's great to speak to you again. I love the hat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's get into it. 2023 was a banner year for ransomware.
Yeah. Even higher than 21, which was already a record-breaking year that made insurance companies quake in their boots. This is 95% more ransomware in 23 than we had in 22. So a lot of increase. And a lot of that's because of the CLOP mass exploits, the move it, the go anywhere hacks. And threat actors also didn't really take a summer break. So they were making money off of us. So they just kept going all summer long. And so we didn't really see threat activity let up, and it's even increasing into the holiday season, and that's normal. But it's going to be a record year for ransomware.
And that's not a good record to break, right? That's not a good record to break.
Yeah, exactly. What are some of the common methods they're getting into these networks or exploiting? Kind of how does the chain of activity work?
Yeah, well, regardless of the ransomware gang, whether it's Lockbit, Black Hat, Royal, Medusa blog, they have similar kind of initial access vectors, and once they're in, they may have some different tactics, but credential theft, phishing, and reusing creds, finding creds on a breach site and then reusing them to get in, things like that. Unpatched systems, lack of segmentation, so that when they do get an internet-facing system, they're able to run around through your network. Just like you were saying with legacy VPN, if we're able to phish a user's creds, if they are able to find some creds off a breach site, now they have access to the entire network through legacy VPN. And especially if it's flat and has no segmentation, the threat actor is able to do whatever they want. Users also have too many privileges. So a lot of users have some kind of level of administrative access, whether it's just local admin on their boxes or domain admin. And that allows the threat actor to do a lot more than they should be able to. So, and I'd be willing to say that there's also an expanding attack surface with too many internet-facing systems, too many integrated cloud systems, et cetera. It's really hard to protect everything right now, across all of those attack vectors.
We're definitely seeing a huge rise in IoT and OT devices. Do you see in the role that you do that there being compromises in that area?
Yeah. But those tend to be more industry specific. There's more OT and IoT in healthcare and in manufacturing, than there are in, finance and things like that. So, but we are seeing some OT and IoT. A lot of times that is not ransomware. A lot of times that's other threat actors trying to disrupt operations or trying to gather data. But we have seen IoT and OT be a vector that ransomware happens in. We were involved in that fish tank thermometer situation that is kind of popular. And so that idea that you can get hacked through a fish tank thermometer is just brings to light that all these smart devices, everything on your network, anything could be a attack vector.
A fish tank thermometer.
Yes. Into a casino. Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned unpatched systems and lack of segmentation. Excuse me. Now, I'm assuming unpatched systems is where they compromise through that kind of vector, but then the lack of segmentation is how it spreads. So yes. In my rational thinking head, patch your systems first. That's really where people are coming in. But to reduce it, if you're not able to patch everything, also segment your network. Is my kind of logic the right logic?
Yes, yeah, but keep in mind that especially in large corporate environments, it's hard for them to patch everything. And some legacy systems are end of life or don't have patches available, or the company is scared to patch them because they know it's going to be downtime. They don't have a way, they're not architected in a way that they can patch it effectively without creating a lot of disruption for their users, their customers, et cetera. So a lot of large corporations are leaving their stuff unpatched. And we've seen this a lot of times. Patches haven't been deployed for years to some organizations. So, every organization has some unpatched systems, even ones that are really good at patching. They have that Windows 7 box in the corner that's running their core processing for something, and they leave that alone. So the key is to put in some segmentation so that one of those boxes does get hacked, the threat actor can't just go wherever they want. Unpatched systems allow the threat actor to gain administrative access. They allow them to put in persistence and keep their foothold in those systems because they're able to do whatever they want in an unpatched system pretty much. And then, segmentation would be what keeps them from jumping from machine to machine for that lateral movement. But with lack of segmentation, once they own one machine, they can just keep going from one to the other.
So obviously zero trust comes into the play, but let's assume, what I've done historically in the past is had a known good network, i.e. a network where I know I've been able to patch everything on a regular basis, and then segment the unknown. And I don't mean just have a known network in an unknown network, but have a known network in several unknown networks.
Yes.
Would that be the right approach?
It's a starting approach, yeah. So identify your crown jewels and your protect surfaces. Figure out what are the things that you want to segment. Whether they're unpatched or not, I would segment them off. But those unpatched systems, especially if they're a high-risk system like that, segment that off. And so you have, your segment that is all your workstations, the things that you are running patch management on, you're pushing stuff out to. Have a segment that's also your patch servers, your file servers, your production, domain controllers and stuff. But then you might have a segment that's your ERP system, a segment that's handling your manufacturing controls, a segment that's handling this old unpatched system that's running, some kind of batch processing for you, that's running some script that was written 20 years ago and you can't touch it. Keep those things segmented so that you are limiting the effect of a threat actor running around your network, a worm, etc.
So let's talk some consequences here, because I don't know if Ebenezer Scrooge is convinced yet he needs to change his ways. I think he's still using those firewalls and those VPN concentrators, and
Right.
he's got a flat network. What are some of the business consequences that you're seeing that may help the cause of Tiny Tim and his family to maybe help Scrooge change his ways?
Yeah. So, I mean, every year we have seen the ransom amounts go up, but as well as ransom amounts, a lot of people aren't paying ransom, which is smart. But sometimes they're in a situation where they have to, just because there's no way to continue business without paying the ransom. But the cost of recovery is going up, and the cost of that incident response and the legal implications and the fines and the fees, we're seeing typical costs of an incident being, $4 and $5 million sometimes. So and that's on a larger organization. On a smaller one, it may be $1 or $2 million, but that's enough of a financial impact that is severely disruptive to some organizations, especially smaller businesses and medium-sized businesses. When you are talking about cyber insurance, a lot of companies have a cyber insurance plan that may be a $1 million plan or a $3 million plan. And the cost of these goes up like crazy as you increase the plan value. And if you are a company that gets a $5 million outage and really has cost you $5 million in lost productivity and just, fines, etc., and your whole insurance policy is $1 million, this is, extremely disruptive to your business.
So
And not to mention, Ebenezer, you did have a successful IPO last year, and now the SEC's looking to see if you have a breach, and if you have a breach, you need to report it. And what is material and what is not material? I don't know.
So you're slowly convincing me this is a good idea, right?
Mhm.
But I'm Scrooge and I'm tight and I've only got a small amount of budget, or I've got lots of money, but I only want to spend a small amount of money. Where do I start? If like where is, if we talk really granular, and let's say I can only patch some systems, or I've only got a tiny amount of money, where should I start this process?
Well, luckily, this threat acting, ransomware exploit is usually happening to companies about every 3 years. So if you don't get it this time around, you can always improve in 3 years for the next incident you have. But in the meantime, most companies are investing their money right now in identification, detection, prevention technology, which is kind of an important place to put it. People are putting EDR in place, multi-factor authentication. Those are table stakes now. Those are just general hygiene. If you don't have MFA and EDR in place now, then you're in severe trouble. But those investments in hardening and in setting up architectures so that you're less likely to have a large incident. I would just expect an incident at some point, plan for that. If you are getting hacked today and you're getting hacked today, how do you wish you had changed your environment so that it would have minimal impact? Think like that. If there's a threat actor in your environment today, what is the splash? What's the blast radius that they'll have in your organization? So most people are investing in EDR and MFA. I would say that although it's an investment, is table stakes at this point. Re-architecting your network, hardening systems, segmenting, putting in identity solutions, CASB solutions that will give you more granular access to systems is really the most appropriate way to do it. So that now if Jack in accounting gets hacked, that Jack's creds can only be used to access certain systems at certain times rather than the whole network. That's really how I would start approaching re-architecting your network.
And when it comes to patching, are most of the compromises through unpatched like Windows OSs, or from switches, or from Wi-Fi, or from like really old, like say Windows XP or 95 or DOS? Where like if I can only get a certain amount of downtime, what should I make sure I 100% patch?
Well, VPN aggregators. So your firewalls, regardless of brand, every one of them has had 0 days in the last year. So those are common. So all of your firewalls and VPN appliances are number one, and then after that, I would say your Windows, servers. But really anything is possible. So that's what makes this attack surface widening problem so impactful, is that really you have to be able to patch and manage every asset in your environment. If you can't, it really becomes a threat vector.
So
Thanks,
Scrooge, how you feeling? I'm not. I don't think you're fully convinced yet. I think we need another haunting.
We definitely.
The Ghost of Zero Trust, Chase Cunningham. Welcome
Yeah.
to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk about the current state of Zero Trust. I know there's a few questions out there around architectures, but let's get to that in a little bit. But let's talk about Zero Trust in 2023.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on. Big move in Australia for the whole government to adopt Zero Trust. Federal government's allocated over $2 billion. It's pretty substantial. I haven't seen a movement this vectored in infosec or IT or cyber since I've been doing this, and I've been doing it for a long time. So I think things are presently on a good approach.
Scrooge, do you have a question?
I've always got questions. One of the questions I've got is, obviously I don't like spending money, right? I'm very, very tight. I'm not convinced yet that I should take my wallet out and spend any money. Is there anything I can do on a Zero Trust journey without going and just buying loads of vendor stuff and throwing loads of money at the wall?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the first thing you should do is be ready to not spend money. Look at all the stuff you've got and figure out what is kind of duplicative, and start figuring out which one is the best at solving the problem based on your real needs. And then the other thing that I would say is look at the data and research that tells you where the adversaries do what they do and apply controls there first. Everything else is sexy lipstick on a pig, but like start figuring out what you have that will either deal with the risk that you currently face, or if you notice there's a gap there, allocate budget to the gap. Don't allocate budget because of vendor marketing.
And are there places I can go and try and understand where I already am with Zero Trust?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of really good docs. There's people that have published maturity models. There's folks that have published assessments. I mean, there's so much free stuff out there that you could get into that would help you kind of figure out where you currently are, and then begin to work from there. It's just like in the accounting world. Make sure that you've where you are, so you know what you're spending and then where that money's going to go, because you shouldn't have to go bankrupt to do ZT.
And is there a particular place you recommend people should start?
Well, everybody's different. Everybody's got their own kind of area that they need to focus on first, but I still would argue, like, look, this is the only place in the history of warfare where the bad guys literally tell you what they're going to do, and then you begin to do that. Like, that's it. There's when somebody says they're going to punch you in the face, don't put a cup on. I mean, that's my point.
Yeah, so there's documentation out there. The governments are doing things. Everyone's kind of jumping on board from what I can tell. The best place to start, what you're saying, is based on my business needs and where my crown jewels are. And I can even go ahead and check where I am in regards to maturity, right?
Correct. Yep. And then luckily there's tons and tons of published documentation that you can, reference. And the last thing I would say is, remember, this is really your strategy. This is not anyone shoving it down your throat. And if somebody is trying to shove something down your throat, it's probably coal.
So it sounds relatively simple. Why have people not done it if it's been talked about for a while? And why are people still like a little bit, I feel, reluctant to go on this journey?
Well, I mean, there's still people that believe Santa Claus is real. So I kind of, think that that's part of the problem. But I mean, just saying, like, that's a thing, right? So just, be aware that it's okay to doubt what's going on. But I mean, this is a space where you have hundreds, if not thousands, of instances of proof of what will happen if you choose to do otherwise. And the smart thing is, like, be smarter than everybody else. Like, I actually have Krampus here on my thing because I'm a fan of Krampus. He punishes people for bad things. That's what's going to happen to you. Like, Krampus will come out of cyber and smack you on the hiney with the Krampus stick if you don't do what you need to do in cyber.
Do you see in the work that you do more and more people on this journey? And they may be at the start versus at the end, but because I'm feeling that there's movement. Are you feeling that as well?
Yeah, I feel there's a lot of movement. Mainly, actually, I feel the movement in the small and mid-sized business, which is really good because we've kind of done all we can with big enterprise and big government. I mean, they've had decades to get better, and to some degree they have. But where people keep getting ripped is on the small and mid-sized contractors, vendors, third party. So to me, it's encouraging that we see that growth going on in those sectors.
I'm slowly getting convinced.
Are
Tiny
you?
Tim, you're helping me, Tiny Tim.
So if I'm trying to convince Ebenezer and I need something and I don't want to go read a bunch of documents, are there some places I can go, some websites, maybe some books that you might recommend to get Ebenezer and his team up to speed on how they should be thinking about Zero Trust?
Yeah, I would say go look at anything written by Jason Garbus. He's great. Look at the stuff from NIST 800-207. I publish some relatively somewhat valuable content every once in a while. There's a lot of really great people that publish really solid stuff. Like, if you Google Zero Trust and it's something that's referenceable and doesn't come from a vendor, that's where I would go read, and there's lots of it.
Are there any good examples of companies or people that have gone on the journey that you can also look at?
Yeah, I mean, look at Google, right? Google got their ass handed to them with the Operation Aurora a number of years ago. They moved to what they call Beyond Corp, which is their version of ZT, and they do it globally for 188,000 plus employees, plus vendors and third parties and contractors. And when's the last time you saw Google with a big breach going on?
It's very true. I'm definitely getting more convinced. I might
All
open
right.
my wallet. Seems unlikely, and I won't open it to buy you a pineapple pizza, but I might open it.
Sounds like you're being convinced. Here we have an opportunity to protect your cyber assets with a lower cost, with a more simple approach.
Seems win-win to me.
All right. Maybe we should move on to that next ghost that may give you the future state. Welcome, Eugenev, a man who needs no introduction.
Is this because of the Tasmanian Devil t-shirt or because of what?
I love the t-shirt, Mr. Ghost of SSE Future.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
I can say this is definitely the 5th time we're doing a live show or the podcast this year. It's a good tradition. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly being convinced that SSE and Sassy and Zero Trust and all these things are worthwhile for me to open my wallet and spend some money, being the tight ass that I am. What do you think is going to happen through 2024 with SSE and Sassy? Is it going to be something that's worthwhile me spending money on?
Oh, definitely, for sure. If you ask all the vendors, they want you definitely to share, to spend all the money on all the amazing products. They can solve everything in one click just after you spend a couple of months enabling everything and make it work. Having said this, without joking aside, I think it's definitely something that slowly bring it together. Chase mentioned, Tim mentioned before, it's not so easy just choose a product and go over there. And I like what Chess mentioned about look what you have. You don't have to buy the sexy tool you see right now. Check what you have first. And it's definitely my approach as well. We have a lot of amazing tools. We have a lot of license that sometimes you don't use that potentially can do what you want. And my not the problem, but I think we kind of went away from the idea of VAR on the V side, on the value, and we go to a vendor, and vendor will always tell you that the product is the best. Why not? And if you're working for a vendor and you don't think it's the best, why are you working for this vendor in this case? But we want an independent consulting people. We want somebody that has a better, a bigger approach on not just on one product, on what else you have to help you design this roadmap. And this is where you should open up your wallet, to spend some money, understand what you have gap analysis, whatever you call it, see what you do, align it to business. This is what a lot of time we're not doing. Where is the business going? Are we going to have multiple stores? Do we need the SD1? Are we going to have a store of the future? Do we need local micro segmentation? Or maybe we're going to have something else. So have a bigger approach on where the business is going, and then bring the zoom back to understand what technology is going. And the part that very, very important, whereas the money comes in, is that's cloud, network, and the endpoint people will talk to the network people all together, because the SASE and SSE has a lot of synergy, a lot of combination between all of these different groups.
So I currently have a team of network folks, and they have a bit more money in their wallet. But I also have a team of security folks that don't have any money in their wallet, and they don't necessarily like to play well together.
Replace all of them with elves and outsource.
How do I go about potentially getting those teams to understand that there's potentially a benefit to them both to do this?
I start with food, buy lunches and do lunch and learns, and kind of we all like the idea of food and basically education to explain, not try to say where we're going, not try to put one product and just we need to go there, but explain what's happening in the industry, explain what's happening somewhere else. What is the benefit between network and security working together? Let them ask questions, let them kind of tackle you and let them express their opinion, because we as a technical smart people want to be sometimes the smarter person in the room. And if somebody is smarter than us, then we would like sometimes to push more. So scale down the ego, understand what people want, play in the soft skills. You know me, I like the idea of the soft skills. Get requirements, isolate the people that the ego is too high, have one-on-one with them to understand why. Are they afraid about job security? Are they afraid about something else? Do you want to learn something new? Maybe they want to have a new course. Give the network guy a course about ZTNA or something else. Give the security guy more course about something. Basically understand what they need to play more ball and become a better team player.
So we see a lot of consolidation in SSE. SSE brings together all these disparate products, as we've talked about. There's also a lot of consolidation in the market, company A buying company B and company C buying company D, etc. So there's now talk from Gartner about, I think it's universal ZTNA. Have I got that right, Tim?
No, one vendor SASE.
Well,
single vendor SASE.
Single
vendor SASE. So do you see that being something that's achievable? Do you see that this consolidation between companies is leading to something good? Or does it mean that there's going to be more powerful companies out there? Or is it going to kind of squash innovation when all these companies join? What do you think this kind of consolidation of companies means for us in the future?
Isn't this similar to when we had a firewall, a router, a VPN concentrator, an IPS, and URL filtering device, and then we come up with the UTM, and then we come up with next generation firewall? So in a way, like, okay, we had 8 different boxes in line, parallel, or on monitor only, and then we put everything under one box. It didn't work, and then we figure out a different way to do it. It worked better. So in a way, right now we're doing something similar under SSE and Sassy. We're putting multiple different things under one box. I see, like, the one part that a lot of people don't talk about it, and I think it's important, is, do I really care about how it's working on the back? I want it to be fast. I want to have a unification of policy, like DLP for me, it's a big thing. Malware detection, I don't want to go to many different places and do this. I want to do it in one place. This is good. Now, is it killing innovation? Probably not. We have the browser isolation enterprise browser domain that started 3 years ago. No, it didn't exist. It was called remote browser isolation. Now we changed the names and we did something else. We have new things. We have newer approach to DLP. We have newer approach to endpoint security. So we always innovate. I don't think it killing innovation. What I do see, some companies potentially we're going to have a better license, a better integration if it's working. But it doesn't mean if you're a big company and you acquired 8 vendors, I don't want to mention names, it's magically going to now work well.
So it's
the devil
truly
in the
about
details.
having proper integration is one of the keys.
But you can have proper integration between 5 vendors, not under one company. We have API, everything is SaaS. We can create this integration over API. We can share policy. We don't really have this idea of I created a product and I will let some other product to change me or submit files to me. It's happening on a like small scale basic right now between vendor to vendor, but I don't see many vendors starting with the idea that I'm going to have other vendors talk to me right away, like an open architecture. There's like use cases somewhere here. This is what I see right now, but we're probably going to get there.
So I think between all the ghosts and the work that Tiny Tim has done, I'm convinced that it's time for me to buy some presents for my network and my security team. But I'm still quite tight.
I think when you buy pizza with pineapple to everyone, it's definitely going to help the spirit.
They're all going to leave if I do that. But
they actually may stay. I know that the Cratchit family likes
me and the Tiny team had a very good collaboration lunch over pizza with pineapple.
Yeah,
we're gonna do it again.
That's why I didn't come. But let's assume I'm still being Scroogey and I still want to only spend a certain amount and I only want to start the project initially and take baby steps and tiny steps and bite off small bites of that elephant. Where would you recommend I start my journey? If I can't do all of SSE in one go because I'm too tight to spend the money, where should I spend the first amount of money in your recommendations?
First of all, is to understand what you have. You need to understand your assets and you understand how it's working. I think the goals depend on the company. I like the idea of ZTNA and remote access. I don't like the term replacing VPN because VPN, it's a technology, it's not a product. So, but it's my server place. So you need to VPN concentrator. I know it's a remote access, but just the VPN, it's something else. But the remote access idea is a very interesting point of people and exposure to the company. So from my perspective, this is one of the points where I start, but you need to understand what kind of company you are. Because if you have many offices, it may be something else. If you're very SaaS oriented, then maybe you don't need so much remote access because you can solve with URL filtering. So unfortunately, I cannot point you to one direction. I'll suggest to hire somebody externally, understand what you have, understand what do you do, your versions, your firewalls, your remote access products, whatever else you have, and then they will build a framework and roadmap based on your company and not just because somebody says it's a best practice.
I think I'm convinced, Tiny Tim.
Nice. We have
completely by mistake. I have an offering in this case.
All right. So why don't we bring on the rest of the ghosts and
we'll answer some questions. Simon, you should.
All right. So first question is, what are the issues with getting ZTA, I think it's ZTNA, to work with legacy systems that depend on things like layered user access? Who wants to take that one? Maybe it's Scrooge.
What are the issues with getting ZTA to work with legacy systems? I don't think there is. I think Zero Trust is a strategy, and Chase will slap me, and he's much bigger than me if I get this wrong. It's not necessarily a technology. I think Art covered it pretty well about segmentation. I think there's a lot we can do with Zero Trust with the tools we already have in place. I think we've all mentioned that. All of the ghosts and me and Tiny Tim have mentioned that today. So I think if you have a legacy system and for whatever reason you're concerned about it, you can't patch it, you can't look after it, then segment it. Deal with it in a different way. That's at least my opinion. I don't know if any of the ghosts want to chip in.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I worked with the Library of Congress on ZT. They literally have punch card stuff still working. So if you can find something older than punch cards, like, I don't know, manually shoveling electrons, it doesn't really matter. Like, there's a way to solve this problem, and strategy is what has to happen. And there's also this thing that people should remember about contested space. You're never going to be perfect. You're going to have things that you can't fix. As long as I can deal with those things that I can't fix, manage it, then I'm doing okay. Like, there is no, you're never going to have perfection. You're never going to have no breach. You're never going to have no risk, whatever else. No matter what some companies will tell you, you just have to be able to manage, maintain, control it. This is how you gain operational capability. Anything else is shenanigans.
That's why we have risk registry idea and asset management. You know.
Okay, Simon, next question.
How can Zero Trust be effectively deployed within a corporate environment? And is it a multi-department buy-in, including HR, IM, so on and so forth?
Oh, I mean, I can answer that one initially. The answer to that is yes, everyone needs to buy in. Again, it's a strategy. It's not your IT team going and buying more tech necessarily. I mean, there is some tech that can help. It's not your cyber team forcing you to buy certain tech. It really starts from the bottom up and from the top down. Everybody needs to understand why it's being done and the reasons behind it and how people are going to be protected. Because otherwise, humans tend to want to, and I'm going to try and be polite, but humans tend to go around rules. We don't necessarily like to abide by them if we don't fully understand what they're there for. Most people will drive on the road pretty quickly until they see an accident, and I've seen that, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. And I think, yes, you need to educate, and everybody needs to be involved in it. If it's driven just by the IT team, in my opinion, it's likely to fail.
Yeah, I would agree with you right there. I think you just said it. If it's driven by IT and IT alone, that thing's going to fail. It's going to fail hard. This is a business strategy and must be viewed in terms of the business and outcomes.
Anybody else?
And one thing I would hazard to say is that it really doesn't have to be, you don't have to knock off the whole company at once. So you can do it department by department and work through it. And, there has to be buy-in from the top. There has to be buy-in across the business in order to make it work. But you don't have to do it all at once. So you can strategically go through pieces, implement identity, security, segmentation, etc., and data security, and roll out pieces that will affect departments. And as long as you have that buy-in from that department when you're doing it, you're in good shape. So it doesn't have to be this global, enterprise-wide 40,000 user or more effort at the same time. But you do need buy-in from the whole organization when you start it, or else when it comes time for that department, they're going to push back and say no. So you're going to need that kind of a, authority going in.
So don't turn it into a waterfall project. Use more of an agile approach.
You need some folks, you need somebody at the top that's got some intestinal fortitude to drive this thing, right? If I had a nickel for every company I'd been at where they said everybody was in sales, and I'm like, cool, do I get commission? And they go, no. So then, well, what the hell? How am I in sales? Like, the objective comes from up top, and they say this is what we're going to do, and everybody does it. And I 1,000,000,000% agree you should get buy-in and whatever else. But at the end of the day, it's my company. I'm running things. I'm in charge. If you don't like it, there are other places to work. I won't let you risk my other employees' future because you don't want to do multi-factor auth. If that's the case, there's the door. Don't let it hit you where the good Lord split it.
Okay, Simon, next.
All right. So how do we protect the zero trust architecture from threats of ransomware that are either account hijack, takeover, privilege escalation, poorly worded, but the gist is there.
Out of band authentication, biometrics, self-sovereign ID. There's plenty of ways to scratch
It's
that
all
itch.
part of it. Yeah, there's a lot of different things. That's why I have the segmentation, because if somebody get infected, we don't want anybody else to get infected. And we have access to somewhere and you're infected, this way we're not able to infect everything else. So the entire, I think, methodology of zero trust is actually to prevent all this.
Yeah, I mean,
breach.
The term zero trust, I don't necessarily think is a correct term, because it doesn't mean zero. It means the absolute minimum that is required, which is unfortunately isn't necessarily zero in most cases. But if you reduce that attack surface and only allow people to access things they should access, then you're definitely reducing your attack surface, right? And if they are compromised, instead of being able to go to 1,000 systems, they can go to the 2 specific systems that they've got access to. Inherently, you're reducing the threat at that point. Will we ever get 100% protected against breach? I don't think we could. I think we could have this conversation in 10 years. But can we get to the point where it's limited? Yes.
Yeah. Also, the idea of zero trust architecture doesn't eliminate monitoring, logging, other things we used to do. We still want to understand what's happening.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. I'd like to thank, I think we should bring Simon on, right?
Sure. Simon,
you need to come on. We can't hear you, by the way, but
I
good.
did that on purpose.
Oh. I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas or a Happy Holidays. I'd really like to thank Simon for everything he does for infosec.live community. I'd like to thank him for letting us use his platform today. And I'd like to thank him for the person he is, because he's a very good friend. And he's definitely doing a lot. And I'd like to thank John for being my co-host to the SSE Forum and being that shoulder to cry on when I lose my shit sometimes. And I'd like to thank all of the guests for just being the guests. I mean, I know you all kind of personally now. I'm sorry Evgeny, you eat pineapple on pizza. Not everything can be nice about everybody. But I'd like to thank you all. And John, I don't know, or Tim, sorry.
Can I just jump in and ask a quick question that might put the cat amongst the pigeons? It might not, considering two of you work for a vendor.
Remember that.
Well, this kind of Chase, I'm addressing the question to based on one of the comments he made earlier. And Chase, you've made me smile so much during this live stream. I've had a shitty day today, so thank you for your humour. It's been much needed. Do you think the vendor narrative around zero trust is helping or hindering the adoption?
Helping, because it's great to have the bullhorn and all the money that's being vomited into the ether to try and get people to buy their stuff, but hurting because they have people who are marketing this thing that don't understand what the hell it actually is, and it's like the blind leading the blind over the curb. So there's good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. I'll take the bullhorn because thank you for that, but I really wish that they would spend more time understanding the proper way to do it, because that would help the market more.
Thank you. I'll be quiet now.
Over to you, Tiny Tim, to wrap up.
Yeah, so thank you, Jay. It's been an amazing year. Looking forward to 24. Hopefully your Zero Trust program at Scrooge Corp is a successful one. Art, amazing. Absolutely enjoying all the posts on Twitter. It's about the only thing I find redeeming on Twitter these days. So keep up the good work, and it's always great to talk to you. You get I'll be sending you an email. I may be seeing you in the future, so we'll maybe doing something together.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is Simon redefining the word SaaS? We have software as a service. Is Simon like Simon as a service?
Simon as a service.
Simon as a service? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to my gigolo days in my early 20s, but I'm 50 next year, so I've had to look at alternatives. There's just not the demand anymore. That
would be more as service Simon, I think.
There we go. Yes.
Simon says, Could be Simon Says. Simon Says as a service.
So many memories right now. Yeah.
Yeah, Chase, I think it's been in the comments several times. I think people are writing down all your phrases.
Yeah.
Somebody said
Track
they
of it.
want
I
to
think there's
create
going to
a,
be a website, Chaseisms.
well, somebody said they wanted to create a calendar of all of your
That is true.
statements.
Yeah. I'm
So-
on it.
Well, that's good because I've been working on my thong body all summer. So yeah.
Me too.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and like I said,
And
have a
thank you,
nice
Simon.
holiday, nice Christmas.
Yeah, have a great holiday. We'll see you in 2024.
Thanks,
you all.
everyone. Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays,
Everyone.
folks. Bye.